Coming to you live from the city of brotherly love. Covering and talking all things baseball and more from the rec leagues in Fishtown and Bustleton to the big league club down at Broad and Pattison. It's the Philadelphia Baseball Review Podcast. Here's your host, Patrick Gordon.
All right, so it's November 21st. How y'all doing? This is Patrick Gordon, managing editor and founder of the Philadelphia Baseball Review. Day before Thanksgiving. Hope all is well. Hope you and yours enjoy the holiday and the travel isn't too stressful. And everything that can be nice goes your way for the day. Make sure, however, if you have any lettuce, throw it away. Just don't even take a chance. Don't eat the green stuff. All over the news. Get rid of it. Just throw it out. All right. So, Phillies, Harper, Machado, the debate goes on, cubicles and phone calls and everything across the Delaware Valley over the last couple of weeks. Again, I've written kind of quite extensively, actually, about this. I think Harper's the guy. I really do. If your choice is between the two, I think you go Harper here. Scott Boras made an excellent point the other day out of the general manager meetings out in California when he mentioned, look, you take Harper on, you're not just taking on a top flight athlete, you're getting a face for an organization, somebody that will put asses in seats, somebody that will generate more revenue and more ticket sales than, say, somebody like Machado. Now, yeah, there's some concern at times. I mean, Harper, I don't know, if he always has given 110%. Last year, I think, his numbers were down, and I think that was the contract weighing on him. I really do. I don't think that was anything aside from that. It's funny, you talk to, some Philadelphia sports fans and baseball fans in particular here in Philly, and they hate Harper. They hate him with a passion. My father's one of them. He can't stand him. But I guarantee he's one of those guys where if he's on your team, you love him. And again, I think the Phillies could use a face right now, and I think that's Harper as opposed to Machado. Machado really turned me off in the postseason, and again, he just said, things about hustling, and he just didn't look as if his head was in the game. And I haven't watched many Orioles games to sit there and be able to say definitively that, yay or nay on him. But again, given the choice between Harper and Machado, I think Machado really turned off a lot of Philadelphians this past postseason with his play and his comments. And, again, on yesterday, the Phillies just announced they're celebrating players like Chase Utley and Jimmy Rollins and Ryan Howard come next year. And yeah, you could argue Jimmy Rollins at times loafed it. But I think of Chase Utley, and I think of his work ethic and what he, did on the field, and how he was just that tenacity and that never give up. And I don't necessarily feel like that flies with Machado. So again, between the two, I think Harper's the go-to. But here is the deal. It doesn't matter if they get one or the other, because that alone will not win them the World Series. It won't. There's no argument. It doesn't matter if you insert Bryce Harper in the middle of that lineup. It doesn't matter if you insert Manny Machado. You will not win the World Series if that is the lone move you make. And we'll talk about this later on, but here's the other kicker. All right. Andy McPhail, director of baseball operations, said in September that the Phillies would only go balls to the wall for a free agent if they believed that they were one player away. And if you recall, he even mentioned next year's free agent class and the free agent class after that as a possibility. And it almost was as if he was hedging his bets. Like, well, if we don't get Machado or Harper or a big name now, there'll be more names down the line, Nolan Arenado and players like that. But then you had John Middleton come out and say, we're going to get a little stupid with, we're going to spend money and maybe even get a little stupid in doing it. I don't know. That to me just doesn't fly. And again, we'll talk about that later on. So, I'd love to hear from you. Let me know. Email, Twitter, light it up. Do you want Harper? Do you want Machado? Why or why not? I don't see them going after both. Yes, they could. They have all the financial flexibility in the world. I don't think they'll go that route, though. I think there's other needs. And hell, even with Harper and Machado alone, with those being two additions to the lineup, I don't know if that makes them, the definitive hands-on favor for the World Series. I think there's still some question marks about the starting rotation, as good as it was up through mid-August last year. I also think there's some concerns and questions about the bullpen. And what do you do with the ninth inning? Do you just give it to Dominguez? And what I would like to see happen, go after Adam Ottavino and throw him in the eighth? We'll see. All right. Back to the John Middleton comments. All right. I love the enthusiasm. Like, this is what you want a owner to do. This is what you want an owner to say. All right. That we're going to go out, we're going to throw down the cash, and hell, we may even get a little crazy in doing it. But here's the deal. Is that smart for the club financially? And how does that make McPhail, and in particular Matt Klintak's job, more difficult? Doesn't make it more difficult. Because you're sitting here as Scott Boras or anybody else out there on the market, you're saying, look, we know you're offering $320, but if we ask for $330 or $340 or $350, we think you'll meet us there. And, the Phillies are in a sweet position here financially. They can afford to take some risks. They can afford to take some chances that other teams cannot. Hell, look at Carlos Santana. If they move him, they're going to need to pick up a decent chunk of that contract. And he's owed $20 million, $23 million over the next 2 years per year. So, again, I can appreciate Middleton's comments, but I also think it puts Klintak and McPhail in a difficult spot, especially when you think about what Klintak and McPhail said at the end of last season in September. They kind of went into this offseason knowing that they could be players, right? Knowing that they could spend money, knowing they had the money, the treasure chest to spend, but they weren't flaunting it necessarily. And then you have John Middleton, who I think is fantastic, by the way. He's very engaging. He's very involved. He's very, really, really top-notch with the analytics. He wants to see this team succeed and grow and win. But it'll be interesting to see what comes of, this, I don't want to call it a battle, but this difference of opinion. You have a more reserved side with Klintak and McPhail and a bit more of a outlandish and let's go almost at all cost with John Middleton. So I think it'll be interesting to see over the coming weeks how that all plays out. But it shocked me to hear Middleton publicly saying, let's get a little wild here spending. Again, I can respect it, and I think Philadelphians respect it. And I think that's what you want to see. I just don't know if coming out publicly and saying it is a smart move. But hey, time will tell. I think it's good to put the Phillies on the map. I think it's good for Middleton to be, for years, you think about it, and, the Phillies ownership, it was kind of this, who are they? Who owns the Phillies? It's this group of ghosts, essentially, people you've never seen or people you've never heard of. Now that's changed. I think that's a good thing. Looking at the amateur side of things this week, LaSalle. All right, we wrote about this. A really impressive recruiting class coming in. The A10, best in the A10, the recruiting class for 2018. 73rd in the nation by Perfect Game. Perfect Game does a great job of touting and highlighting high school prospects and showcases and academies and things like that. So it'd be really cool to see. Head coach David Miller is doing some great things out there at LaSalle. They had a tough year last season. I think they'll have a chance to bounce back. And what's really cool is with, I think it's 17 newcomers, that'll be joining the Explorers. Quite a few have Philadelphia ties, which is really nice, including Chuck Kelly, who is the reigning MVP of the Philadelphia Catholic out of Father Judge. All right, 6 foot, 210, finished 5-1. 61 strikeouts over 44 innings last year with Father Judge. A really nice ad there, I think. And then also they added a couple power bats, which is good to see. And again, LaSalle has a couple really nice pieces. Ben Faso being one. They really can compete. They really can play ball. And they started out well, I believe, last year and then just kind of tailed off at the end. So hopefully things will be changing up for the Explorers. And then also the University of Penn made some news this past week, announcing captains for 2019, Matt O'Neill, Sean Phelan, Chris Adams, and Christian Scafidi. Again, a couple good names there. Matt O'Neill, Sean Phelan, Chris Adams. and Scafidi, I believe we had at different times last year the Philadelphia Baseball Review in our Player of the Week honors and notebooks. So some nice talent there, getting respect for the 2019 Penn Quakers in the Ivy League over there. So we're sitting here Thanksgiving Eve, recording this here. What to be thankful for? There's a lot. To be honest, I have a 4-year-old son. His name is Cole. No, it is not after Cole Hamels. Everybody asks that. He's really taking a liking to sports, which is great, in particular baseball. And what's really neat is I have a lot of memorabilia, cards, and autographs, and you name it, I have something like it in the baseball circles. And he's taken a liking to opening packs of baseball cards. And it just so happens 1987 was the year when I really got into this with my father. And for whatever reason, I have the entire 87 top set, which is worth about $8, if that. But I went crazy when I was younger and foolish with money and bought all these boxes and packs of 87 tops and became almost a hoarder of it. And, they're worth nothing now. They never were worth much to start with, unless you were watching Don West in that Shop at Home. That's a whole other podcast we'll talk about. But anyway, 87 tops, you got the wood borders, the grain, the logos, everything to me. Man, that's the best looking baseball card. And what's cool now is my son is opening these packs, because again, they're not worth anything, so what the hell, let him play with them and open them. And he's just mesmerized by this stick of gum that's stuck to the back of a baseball card, and he's looking at the logos, and he's like, wow, the Orioles logo looks so neat, and who's this team? And he's pointing at the Expos logo, and the Anaheim or Los Angeles Angels at that point, and they had the A with the crown, and it's just really cool to see him sitting there and looking at these cards that are worth nothing at all, and to see them oogling over them and just really having fun. And now he's kind of like, hey, Dad, these are my baseball cards. And little does he know, everything I have is going to go to him at some point and sometime anyway. But it's really neat to see, and he's walking around. We put all of his baseball cards in this. I bought a blaster of the 2018 Topps update with Shohei Ohtani on the cover. He's walking around with all these 87 Topps and 88 Topps baseball cards in this box, and he's like, who's this guy, Daddy? And it's pretty neat, just talking to him about, hey, this is Shohei Ohtani and so forth, and, whatever. Really looking forward to on Friday, too, Black Friday, taking him down to, the Phillies always do this, they do a fantastic job, down to Citizens Bank Park they have a sale at the what do you call it, the Majestic store. But they also do this thing where you can go on the field and have, hang in the dugout for a little bit, go to the clubhouse, get your picture taken with the Fanatic, and it's all Christmas oriented, and it's really nice. And they do a fantastic job with it. And my wife and I went down a couple years ago to it. And she's not a big baseball fan or whatever, so it was cool to have her down there. And, again, it'll be neat for me to show him, hey, here's the clubhouse where Daddy goes sometimes to talk with the players, and here's the dugout, and here's the field, and I'm really, really looking forward to that on Friday. So it's another thing I'm thankful for. And then, just to be able to talk about the upswing here with the Phillies, I think is a good thing too, to be thankful for if we're just keeping it sports. Look, good things are on the horizon for this organization. They have money. They have ownership who obviously is engaged and involved. The verdict could still be out on Clintack, and I think the same on Gabe Kapler. But with that said, the trajectory is headed in the right direction, and I think that's important to keep in mind. So I'm curious to hear what you're thankful for. So definitely give us a shout, P. Gordon, PBR on Twitter, email, whatever, let us know. One of the things that I harp on a lot, I also work as a teacher at Temple University in career development. And one of the things I always try and talk to students about, mentorship, but also I try and push inspiration and motivation and things like that And what I'm trying to do with and what we're trying to do with Philadelphia Baseball Review going forward for the next, taking this next step in our progression is really getting more involved in our amateur coverage and promoting high school athletes and the work they do and getting them noticed by scouts and or D1, D2 colleges and things like that. So one of the things I wanted to talk about here is persistence and kind of going above and beyond what you may believe is needed for something. And it's one thing for an athlete to get to a point in high school to be sort of the star, to be the one that's recognized as, hey, he's a good player. That will not get you to where you want to go at the D1 level. It won't. There needs to be something more. There needs to be that leadership component. There needs to be that go-gettingness, that special ingredient that everybody just doesn't necessarily have. You can't live on talent alone. And that's one of the things I harp on a lot with students and children that I work with. You need to have something else, something special. For example, when I talk with college students in Temple, I mention about, look, you're going to cross the stage with 800 students. What makes you different at graduation? And I think a lot of it can be said similarly to high school athletes. Look, there's a lot of players with a great arm, great eye at the plate, good plate discipline, that can steal bases and has high-level baseball IQ. But there has to be something different about you. And what is it? What is it that'll get scouts and coaches to recognize you? So for any youth players out there, amateur players out there thinking about, how do I make my mark? What can I do? Hitting 350 or 400 alone won't do it. There's always going to be somebody hitting better than you, or somebody that's stronger than you, or somebody that can throw faster than you. All right, so you got to think about, what can I do to separate myself? And it's a difficult question to ask yourself, but I think when you sit there and kind of reflect, and again, Thanksgiving, a good time to do that, you reflect, I think you can come up with some ways to make yourself different, some ways to stand out. Maybe it's some leadership. Maybe it's mentoring some of the younger players on your team. Maybe it's putting in that extra time, being that first in, first out, especially if you're a senior. So again, I implore you, think about what makes you different, because just having the talent alone, all right, will not do it. You have to do something different. There has to be something else there. So think about it. Think about it. It's better for your future to find out what that thing is now, or what those things are right now, and build on them, than go through your academy, go through your clinics, go through your summer teams and your high school teams, Legion teams, whatever the case is, with great talent, and have very little else. All right, so keep that in mind going forward. Mailbag time. Taking a look, Phillies made a couple additions, 40-man roster on Tuesday, selecting Archimedes Gamboa, shortstop, right-handed pitcher Edgar Garcia, and ready Adonis Medina to the 40-man roster. This brings them now to 38 players on the 40-man. Kind of shocked about Tom Eshelman. I know he had a really, really disastrous year last season. He was ranked as, I think MLB Pipeline may have had him as the 15th best Phillies prospect at one point. They have him down now at 27th. He's more of a control pitcher than anything. All right, he will not blow you away. He probably projected as a 4, more likely to be a 5. But 2-13 with a 5.84 ERA last year. Really struggled. Opponents hit close to 320, I believe, off of him. A right-hander, 24 years old. I envision him being someone that's picked up in the Rule 5 draft during the winter meetings. I just was kind of surprised with him being left off. Otherwise, the other moves make sense. Gamboa, projects as a solid shortstop. The Phillies really like his arm. So no real surprises there with the 30-man or 40-man roster. 2 slots still open. Now, it'll be interesting to see what happens over the coming days and leading into and through the winter meetings. Rhys Hoskins has made it very clear he wants to go back to first base, and rightfully so. I think Gabe Kapler even said it at the end of the season last year that at this point Hoskins has earned his right to say where he wants to go. I think putting him at first is a smart move. Look, the experiment out in left field, I've written about this extensively. You know it. We all know it. It never worked. All right. Kapler's idea of just putting players in different spots, I knew that was going to be an issue when he mentioned it last year at the winter meetings. When he said, I feel like I can put almost anybody in any spot. That's difficult. All right. And Hoskins isn't a left fielder. He didn't play it since college, whatever. So I think seeing him move back to first will be good for the Phils. But then what do you do with Carlos Santana? Now, you could trade him, but his trade value isn't going to be that high. I mean, look, if there were that many suitors for him, then there would have been that many last year when he was a free agent. So you have to think of it that way. So here's the deal. If Santana's owed 23 mil over the next 2, I think the Phils are going to have to pick up a significant chunk of that, right? I think what could happen here is they move him over to third. Now you say, well, what happens to Maikel Franco? Well, look, I believe Franco has more trade value than Santana right now. I think there's a lot of teams out there that view Franco as somebody that, well, he's done okay in Philly. Because if you look at the numbers, it's not as if he's been terrible. We see him every day, so we sort of see the flaws, I think probably more so than some other people. But I think another team may view him as somebody that, I think we can fix him up. He can be our project, basically. So in turn, I think your return value for him via trade could be higher than that for Santana. So it'll be interesting to see what the Phils do there. I also believe Franco could be part of, and again, you're probably shooting for the sky here, but, if the Marlins move, and it all sources and everything indicates they will, JT Realmuto, I think Franco could be part of a deal there. Probably along with a couple top-level prospects for the Phils. I think they'd probably keep Sanchez, but I think Medina, maybe even Adam Hazley may be a part of something like that. I don't, it's tough to say what Derek Jeter's looking to do down there, but, Real Muto has made it clear he doesn't want to stay there. And, that puts the Marlins in a difficult spot. And the Phils need something at catcher. I don't necessarily believe Jorge. I don't know if the organization believes right now that Jorge Alfaro is your starting catcher entering 2019. I think long term, he could slide into that role. There's just too many question marks, particularly about his defense. So, again, we'll see what goes on there. And then also, I think another area the Phillies need to focus on, starting pitching. Look, up through August 17th, behind the Houston Astros, their starting pitching, you could argue, was the best in baseball. All right, they led the league in quality, or were second or third in the league in quality starts. Behind Aaron Nola. But here's the situation: you can't. I don't believe, and the organization has kind of alluded to this. Matt Klintak, in fact, prior to the season ending. It's tough to enter next year with Velasquez, Eflin, and Pivetta as your 3, 4, 5, in whatever order you see them as. In particular, if you're going to compete, against the Braves and whatnot. So, I'm not saying go after Patrick Corbin, Nathan Eovaldi. Like, there's a couple names out there though that I think the Phils are looking at that would be nice additions to the rotation, and I think you need an upgrade there. And again, that's why I'm saying the Harper Machado by itself doesn't cement this team even in the postseason, let alone in the World Series. I think you need some starters at the back end there that are reliable. And, look, I think Velasquez, Eflin, or Pivetta as a 4 or 5, okay, fine. But I think the three of them making up the majority of your rotation, especially with Jake Arrieta coming off a, so-so to subpar year, it's tough to be comfortable with that. So I think over the coming days and weeks, the Phillies really should be looking at some starting pitching options. So coming up, the winter meetings will be out in Las Vegas, December 9th through the 12th. I'm excited. I have booked my spot out there. This will be 4th or 5th year covering the winter meetings. I am not, however, that thrilled with where I will be. All right, so the meetings themselves are at the Mandalay Bay, which isn't far from where I will be, but I will be at the Stratosphere. Now, I've never been to Vegas. So please let me know, everybody out there listening, the Stratosphere, Vegas, your opinions, where to go, what to see. I'm hearing all this stuff. But apparently I'm in like the really crappy part of town. Like far, far up north from, up the Strip or whatever. But it made sense. It was, it wasn't the cheapest place. I didn't go that round. But, I wanted to go on the Strip, but I wasn't getting involved, Mandalay Bay and MGM, and, it was 3 times the price of what it would have been for the same trip at, and staying at the Stratosphere. So, the place looked cool, and, again, I've never been to Vegas, so I'm looking forward to it. It should be interesting. It will be something else, for all Philadelphia fans, though. Bryce Harper lives in Las Vegas. He lives out there. It would be pretty cool if the Phils do work something out with him and have him sign that week. It's neat seeing these large superstar signings live. And what happens in the winter meetings, there's always in the one corner like this huge backdrop for MLB. And it's basically if there's any breaking news, if there's any big signings or trades, the representatives go up to this area with the backdrop behind them. And, they do basically an impromptu press conference. And, it would be something else. Last year, I believe it was Giancarlo Stanton, and several stars the years before. I think it'll be neat if, to see the Phillies in that spotlight there. But time will tell. Somebody asked me the other day to put a number on it. I think, if all the reports are true and Washington did in fact offer him $300 million for 10 years, and Harper said no. Now again, there were no opt-outs apparently, and there were some things going on with that deal. I don't think it's out of the realm for him to get 350, 360, 370, maybe touch 400. If there's a bidding war, who knows? It'll be something to see though. And again, the Phils are the leading candidate for this, so it's pretty interesting there. All right, so I will put out another podcast here, probably closer to the start of the winter meetings. So you're looking probably December 7th, 8th, 6th, somewhere in that area. Well, this is something new we're doing. All right, this is something new with the Philadelphia Baseball Review. Again, we're really trying to make inroads at the amateur level here in Philadelphia and trying to grow the sport as much as possible. One thing I wanted to mention, if there's anybody out there that is involved in an academy or a clinic or does anything with youth baseball here in Philadelphia and wants to get in touch for potential stories, potential collaboration, potential us to just help promote whatever it is you do, please reach out. Let me know. I'll do whatever I can. One of the things that I've noticed is, we're doing some Phillies coverage and covering the big leagues, but there's very little coverage given to anything beyond that here in Philadelphia, and we want to change that with the Philadelphia Baseball Review. So we're going to make a real concerted effort, to cover more than just the D1 teams here, and to highlight some interesting stories and everything. So, yesterday I had a great phone call with William Killian of the Philadelphia Police Department, their baseball team, getting some insights and looking for ways to collaborate for 2019. I'd love to do that with more of you out there that are involved with amateur teams or in some of the leagues here in Philadelphia, or whether it be your clinic or camp or whatever. Just reach out. Love to hear from you. Love to work with you. And see what we can do and collaborate. So again, this is the Philadelphia Baseball Review Podcast, episode number 1 in the books. Please be sure to follow me on Twitter, PGordonPBR. Feel free to email me, pgordon@PhiladelphiaBaseballReview.com. And always be sure to follow us, PhiladelphiaBaseballReview.com.